Hello, I'm thrilled to say that on 14th of November, our newest disc, together with Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and Philharmonia Chorus, recordings of the Bells by Rachmaninoff and Falstaff by Sir Edward Elgar, will be out, together with Harmonia Mundi. Both works were written in 1913. There's similarity in those works because they are almost about the lifespan of the main hero. In case of Rachmaninoff, it's probably his own experience, but also they're poems by Edgar Allan Poe. And in case of Edward Elgar, it's also his experience, but also experience of Shakespeare. So they have similarity in a way that in under 40 minutes, you can sense the entire lifespan and entire life of the main hero. Sir Edward Elgar, perhaps the most known English composer of all the time. And to me, when I just arrived here to UK, it was a big discovery. Before I knew, of course, Enigma Variation, probably Pomp and Circumstances, maybe Cello Concerto, Violin Concerto. But his symphonies, his oratorios, his smaller pieces, and his incredible, as he called it, symphonic sketch or symphonic study, Falstaff, it's a great music. I'm very glad that I'm here and that I've discovered such an incredible pieces of music. Sir Edward Elgar was immensely proud of Falstaff, and it is probably one of his best masterpieces of all the time. Why it is not so popular as Enigma? I think there are many factors, one of which it is really difficult for the orchestra, just technically to achieve all the characters, to play all the notes. It is much more challenging than Enigma Variation, for example. And also, you need to tell the story, very precise story, where is Falstaff, where is Henry the King, where it's orchards, where it's a battle. There's many, many aspects. To get it from the orchestra, it requires by far more effort and by far more rehearsals. Probably, perhaps because of that, Falstaff is not as often played as Enigma. But I hope that in the future, I will propagate this piece for sure, and it will find its place in the main repertoire, which is well deserved. Falstaff was a very popular story for many composers. Verdi, famous opera, for instance. I think in case of Sir Edward Elgar, it is more of the personal research of relation between Sir Falstaff and at first Prince and then King Henry. So for that, it is a research of relation between citizen and power, which is very interesting, very fascinating, how those two sides can interact, how those two sides can live together. And it ends up with a lot of questions. There's a retirement of Sir Falstaff, and then there's a death of him. Rather than king is the king. Long live the king. Is it need to be on the shoulders of citizens? What is good for citizens and might not be good for state, and vice versa? There's a lot of questions which this music asks. The bells, as an instrument, as a sound, were always one of the core of the Russian culture, of the Orthodox religion. The bells always were at the time when people were born, when people were married, when people struggled, when was the fire, and on the funerals. So the whole life cycle was always surrounded by the sound of the bells. For Rachmaninoff, as for one of the most Russian composers by its spirit, by its heritage, of course, that was part of his vein, part of his blood. Philharmonia Chorus is one of the best choruses in United Kingdom. And of course, singing in Russian, it's not easy. Luckily, they have a few members whose Russian is fluent and who were teaching the choir about pronunciation, about how they're finding the right emphasis in the phrases. It is still quite challenging, in particular in the third movement, but I think they did an incredible job. It sounded to me as close to Russian as it can be. The soloists for this recording, they came from different countries, and to me it was important that they are at least familiar with Russian language. They may not speak Russian language, but they're familiar with it and they know what it is. Because in the solo parts, especially phrasing, the pace of phrase, the direction of phrase, in all three solos, in tenor, in soprano, and in baritone, they all related to the language structure. So it was very carefully selected, and I'm very glad that they all made it up to the concert and to recordings. I'm familiar with the music of the bells from my childhood. I sang it in a boys' choir, then I sang it in an adult choir. I even sang once or twice on rehearsals a baritone solo in it. So to me it is a very special project because this music I carry from my very early years throughout my life. It evolves, it makes a different meanings inside myself, and I hope it will make different meanings for you as well.